Okay, hello. All right, we still got some people joining. If you don't know me, my name is Brooke Parker. I work with the digital team here at WDAM, and one of the things that we're going to be focusing on for the new year is making sure that we are involved with our local legislature here and really keeping up with the legislators that you guys voted for, what they're doing, what's happening in the Capitol. So we're going to be bringing that to y'all every Monday around 11 o'clock. Today is a little different, because it's the first day, and also, as I'm sure you guys know, we got some crazy weather around here that we're working around. So that's kind of what our Capitol Catch-Up is going to be about. So here is what we're going to be talking about this week. So some of the really important bills I'm sure most of you already know about, which is House Bill 2. And we gave it a little bit of time before we started this first episode. So they have been in session for a little under a month. And so we did that so that we could see what their priorities were. So obviously education is a really big one. So we're going to talk about House Bill 2 today. And if you're unfamiliar with that number, that is the Mississippi Educational Freedom Program Act. We're also going to talk about the Senate's version of that, which is Senate Bill 2001. And then they also have some extra ones that follow up 2002, 2003. They're also about education, so they've separated out their education bills. We're also going to talk about just some wild cards. So we're going to talk about the PERS, of course, because that's really important. We're going to talk about what's coming out of committee. A lot of bills are still in committee, so they're not necessarily made it to the floor yet, and some of them might not ever make it out of committee at all. So just because you hear about a bill does not mean that it will actually become law. It will actually even be voted on at all. So we're going to talk about some of those bills that I've noticed just through social media that you guys have taken an interest in that maybe are not out of committee yet. And one of those does include the dog hunting bill. So we're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about just some bills that maybe aren't so important. I don't want to say not important because all of them are important, but maybe aren't those super high priority ones like education, like PERS, that are also really interesting that they are kind of tossing back and forth at the moment. So the first one, of course, that we're going to talk about is House Bill 2. Feel free, guys, as I'm going through this, to drop your comments in the your questions in the comments. I'm able to read those, and I'll try to answer your questions as much as I can. But of course, with House Bill 2, this is and I believe I'm saying this right, 446-page bill. This is a very, very long bill. And I can't guarantee I'll know all the answers to specific questions, but I will try my best to understand. So this has obviously been one of the biggest topics that we've talked about. So what is the Mississippi Educational Freedom Program Act? This is essentially, everybody throws around the words vouchers. That's not what the name of the bill is, but you guys might know it as that, school vouchers. So this bill gives funding to students who meet a certain criteria so that they can go to a private school or charter school and not necessarily attend a public school that their taxes would pay for. So who can get this? That they have created a tier in House Bill 2 that essentially says that the neediest children who have the lowest income out, and they're basing this around their area that they live in. So let's say the median household for Hattiesburg, the city of Hattiesburg, does that child's household fall below that median? And if so, then they would essentially be the first person to qualify for these vouchers. So they're also not vouchers anymore. They're creating a whole funding, a whole bank account essentially, and they have a name. It's a Magnolia Fund. They've created a bank account for these students. So they will have a lump sum of money that their parents can utilize to send their child to a school of their choice. And so that's kind of how it starts. And so that's the main, the meat of the bill. But it also includes a bunch of other stuff. Like I said, it's a 446-page bill. So we're talking about a lot of stuff here. And I've made sure that I wrote down some of the more important things. So it does include teacher pay raises, and does also target the teacher shortage and bringing back some of those retired teachers, making sure that it's easier for them to get back into work if they choose to. So it targets that. It's all in the bill. It gives, however, and this is something that I'm going to continue to look into the bill and make sure that I'm understanding it correctly, but it gives a $6,000 salary supplement to teachers, and that does not include admins. So I've yet to find a bill, one of the bills that they are currently talking about that does give a raise to admins, because when I talked to a lot of legislators this past week, they said that their goal was to give teachers, teacher assistants, faculty, give them raises before admins, because admins have had raises in the past. So that was the focus. My, and I'll be reaching out to Representative Owens about this again. So there's a 6K salary supplement. Now for assistant teachers, paraprofessionals, they want to raise their salary to starting pay of $20,000. So that is just a set raise across the board. Your starting pay would be $20,000. Right now, I think it is about 19 or something like that. So it does also have a little tidbit that I noticed about this general fund. So this uses the general funds from not last year, but previous years. And it says that every time that general fund increases by 5%, then they need to increase raises for assistant teachers by another 1%. So that is also built in here. Now, another thing that I thought was interesting that this bill establishes is performance-based pay. Now, I know that when you hear that, maybe that's a little scary, because you think, well, that's not maybe necessarily fair to schools that have maybe less resources or anything like that. So this doesn't say, it's not taking away pay. It's not saying you're going to get paid less necessarily because you maybe don't perform as well on school testing or have as a top rating. But it does say that for teachers specifically whose classrooms exceed and do really well, those teachers would receive a performance pay supplement. They would receive a little bonus for their hard work. So that is what that says. Now, House Bill 2, there's obviously a really big conversation around, should we be using public funds that are meant for public schools for private schools? Should we be giving those to private schools? So that is obviously a question that I can't answer for you. That's a question that you guys would come to the conclusion of yourself. But if you haven't already, I definitely suggest reading the bill. If you don't know, you can always just go to MississippiLegislator.com and you can look at every bill that is in committee, that is possible, all that kind of stuff. So where is House Bill 2 currently? So it did pass in the House. It narrowly passed, 61 to 59. And 2 people did not vote. So, and we did have 4 people here in the Pine Belt, 4 Republicans. This was a Republican-led bill who chose to vote no on this bill. So this has not been a bill that is necessarily straight on party lines. This has not been a bill that was easy for a lot of people to get behind. So that is part of it. And also there was a motion to revote on this, and that was declined. So those 2 representatives who did not vote will not get a chance to vote if they wanted to. So now it will go to the Senate. It will actually go into a Senate committee, and the Senate committee will look at that, and maybe they want to change some things. They don't like certain parts of the bill. They'll accept this part but not this part. So they'll look at that before it goes to a vote in the Senate. And I was told that it's probably likely that we're not going to get an answer on this anytime soon. I kind of see it going that way as well. They're probably going to toss this around a lot. They're going to toss it back and forth, maybe and even until March or April. It's going to be a while. Unless it just straight dies, I think that's what it's going to look like. So that's kind of what's going on. Now, I was able to talk with Representative Owens, and he told me a little bit about this bill and specifically what is going to happen next with this bill. So we'll hear what he's got to say.
So I suspect the Senate will either debate it or not debate it. And if House Bill 2 dies over there, my anticipation is that we continue, even though that bill may die, the discussion as to parental freedom in education or school choice will continue regardless of whether or not House Bill 2 dies as that vehicle. The Senate has sent over here Senate Bill 2002, which is its own form of school choice. So even if House Bill 2 dies in the near future, the debate on school choice will continue likely for the remainder of the session.